Hi everyone, welcome to day 9 of an introduction to Shakespeare. I hope you've been enjoying the lesson so far this week and that you've learnt a lot about the story of the Tempest. Today we are going to be moving on and we are going to be looking at the characters of the Tempest. So here is some information about the characters I found on a website called Spark Notes. Now, Spark Notes is a really good website because it gives you lots of information about plot lines of Shakespeare and actually gives you lots of plot summaries. And when you're in secondary school or even at college, depending on what you study, you might use these Spark Notes to help you. They're really, really informative. So, first character is Prospero. So he's the play's protagonist, which means he is the main character, and he's also the father of Miranda. 12 years before the events of the play, Prospero was the Duke of Milan. His brother Antonio, in concert with Alonso, which means working with, King of Naples, usurped him, forcing him to flee in a boat with his daughter. So basically saying that Alonso and Antonio forced Prospero out of his leadership of Milan. Okay, the honest Lord Gonzalo aided Prospero in his escape. Prospero has spent his 12 years on the island refining the magic that gives him the power he needs to punish and forgive his enemies. So we know that obviously he went and he escaped to an island where he lives with Miranda. So Miranda is the daughter of Prospero, and Miranda was brought to the island at an early age and has never seen any men other than her father and Caliban. Remember, Caliban is the creature that lives on the island, and Prospero has made him into his slave. Though she dimly remembers being cared for by female servants as an infant, because she has been sealed off from the world for so long, Miranda's perceptions of other people tend to be naive and non-judgmental. She is compassionate, generous, and loyal to her father. Okay, next we have Ariel. Ariel is Prospero's spirit helper. Ariel is referred to throughout this Spark Note and in most criticism as he, but his gender and physical form are ambiguous. That means we're not really sure if he's a girl or a boy. Just for looking at that picture, you can see that's just an artist's impression, but it's very difficult to make out the actual gender of Ariel. Rescued by Prospero from a long imprisonment at the hands of the witch Sycorax, Ariel is Prospero's servant until Prospero decides to release him. He's mischievous and ubiquitous, able to traverse the length of the island in an instant and to change shapes at will. He carries out virtually every task that Prospero needs accomplished in the play, and Ariel is with him on the island as well. Caliban, another of Prospero's servants. Caliban, the son of the now deceased witch Sycorax, acquainted Prospero with the island when Prospero arrived. Caliban believes that the island rightfully belongs to him and has been stolen by Prospero. His speech and behaviour is sometimes coarse and brutal, as in his drunken scenes with Stefano and Trinculo. Those two characters we'll talk about later. And sometimes eloquent and sensitive, as in his rebukes of Prospero in Act 1, Scene 2. And his description of the eerie beauty of the island in Act 3, Scene 2. So although he seems a creature who maybe is quite primitive, he actually has quite an ability to be articulate and explain how he's feeling at different situations. Ferdinand, son and heir of Alonso. Ferdinand seems in some ways to be as pure and naive as Miranda. He falls in love with her upon first sight and happily submits to servitude in order to win her father's approval. So remember, when he arrives at the island and he sees Miranda, they both fall in love because Miranda's very naive and so is he. Alonso, King of Naples and father of Ferdinand. Alonso aided Antonio in unseating Prospero as Duke of Milan 12 years before. As he appears in the play, however, he is acutely aware of the consequences of his actions. He blames his decision to marry his daughter to the Prince of Tunis on the apparent death of his son. In addition, after the magical banquet, he regrets his role in the usurping of Prospero. So he does, in the end, regret what he did, and he does get forgiveness. Antonio is Prospero's brother. Antonio quickly demonstrates that he is power-hungry and foolish. He persuades Sebastian to kill the sleeping Alonso. He then goes along with Sebastian's absurd story about fending off lions when Gonzalo wakes up and catches Antonio and Sebastian with their swords drawn. So he doesn't want to do the work himself. He kind of gets other people to do the work for him, but he makes up the plan. He's almost like the mastermind of these horrible acts or these evil acts. Sebastian is Alonso's brother. Like Antonio, he's both aggressive and cowardly. He's easily persuaded to kill his brother and he initiates the ridiculous story about lions when Gonzalo catches him with his swords drawn. Gonzalo is an old and honest lord. Gonzalo helped Prospero and Miranda to escape after Antonio usurped Prospero's title. Gonzalo's speeches provide an important commentary on the events of the play, as he remarks on the beauty of the island when the stranded party first lands, then on the desperation of Alonso after the magic banquet, and on the miracle of reconciliation. So he's kind of like the voice of reason throughout the play. Trincolo and Stefano. Trincolo, a jester, and Stefano, a drunken butler, are two minor members of the shipwrecked party. They provide a comic foil to the other. More powerful pairs of Prospero and Alonso and Antonio and Sebastian. Their drunken boasting and petty greed reflect and deflate the quarrels and power struggles of Prospero and other noblemen. So Shakespeare often did this. When there was quite a hard-hitting story or one with a lot of family problems and domestic issues, he would often have a couple of characters who were quite humorous, kind of just to break up the tension in the story. And finally, we have the boatswain. Appearing only in the first and last scenes, the boatswain is vigorously good-natured. He seems competent and almost cheerful in the shipwreck scene, demanding practical help rather than weeping and praying, and he seems surprised but not stunned when he awakens from a long sleep at the end of the play. Okay, so those are all the characters of the Tempest story. Now, we're going to look a little bit more in depth into the characters. So I've focused on 3 characters, Caliban, Prospero and Miranda. And these are letters that Caliban has written, that Prospero has written, and that Miranda's written. We're going to go through them on a slide each. And I just want you to read through the text, read through the letter, and then I want you to answer the questions on the right-hand side in your books. So they call me a slave, that wretched sorcerer forces aches and pains upon me. I suffer and I work. It wasn't always this way. Before they came, I was free and happy. My mother promised me the island. She said that I would be a king. I tried to take the girl as my queen, and that's when things changed. This beautiful island has become a cage. I used to love the sounds of the island, the humming voices and tangling instruments, the cliffs ringed with yellow sands and sparkling seas, the peaceful atmosphere. But now I carry firewood for their fires. Now I use their language. Now my heart is heavy. I don't want someone to save me. I want to save myself. So this is Caliban's inner thoughts. This is how he's feeling. Okay, so what do people call Caliban? They call him, in the first line, you can see it says slave. Okay, what did Caliban's mother promise him? What job is he made to do? How does Caliban feel about the island? And how does Caliban feel about himself? And so for those last 2 questions, you're going to add quotes from the text. So please make sure that you're answering these questions in full sentences. So pause the video here and complete this task before moving on. Okay, the next letter is from Miranda. If by providence, providence means God, divine this message is washed ashore, kind reader, tell my story and send help. My father and I are marooned on a deserted island. We have no one but each other. Although I know no other place, my father tells me stories of our true home, Italy. I take long walks through the island and imagine home on the other side of the huge ocean. I imagine other footsteps in the sands and friends walking by my side. Father worries me. As time goes by, he spends more and more time studying his books. I know nothing of his magic. He will not share it. His mind seems stuck in the past. Then out of nowhere came a gigantic ship. It was caught in a dangerous storm, and I suffered on the shore as the crew battled to save themselves. I hope they're well. Perhaps I will see them soon. Miranda. Okay? So again, she's talking about her feelings, her anxieties about being on the island. So these are the questions I want you to answer. Where is Miranda's home? Who spends their time studying books? How does Miranda feel as she watches the ship caught in the storm? How does Miranda feel about being on the island? and how does Miranda feel about Prospero? So again, for the last two questions, you need to use evidence from the text to support your answer. Okay, and the last letter is from Prospero. I was once a king, but my throne was taken from me. As I studied magic, my brother, the treacherous Antonio, captured my kingdom and banished me and my daughter to this island. But it is not revenge that I seek, only justice. 12 long years have given me time to increase my power and hatch a plan. Antonio's ship has appeared, and by my skill they are now trapped with us. I have raised my daughter well, but in one thing I have failed during my dozen years of exile. I have tried everything in my power to tame the monster Caliban. I taught him to speak properly instead of babbling like a brute. I tried to be kind to make him more like a human being. How has the loathsome creature repaid me? He uses our language to shout abuse at me. He tried to attack my precious daughter, Miranda, and so to punish him, I made him my slave. Prospero. Okay, so this tells us a little bit more about what he's been through and why he's treated Caliban the way he has. Okay, so these are the questions I want you to answer. Who stole Prospero's kingdom? What does Prospero do to Antonio's ship? What does Prospero teach Caliban? How does Prospero feel about Miranda? And how does Prospero feel about Caliban? So again, those last two questions, you need to use evidence from the text. Okay, please remember to take your time with your answers and to write in full sentences, and make sure your work is sent to the Year 6 email address, year6@grange.harrow.sch.uk. Well done, and I will speak to you tomorrow.